Hello and welcome to the podcast. This is Ron's Amazing Stories. We have stories that should thrill you a little and chill you a little.
It's amazing.
You will hear adventures sent in by you guys, classic stories from the pulp mags, and episodes from the golden age of radio. We have special segments like Ghost Stories with Sylvia.
That's amazing.
And the paranormal with Jason.
I think we're going to have a lot of fun.
So settle in for the next hour and enjoy the show. Oh, and you just might want to prepare yourself to be taken away from today.
Another 5-minute mystery.
This 5-minute mystery is being brought to you by Ghost Stories with Sylvia, the place where stories about ghosts are normal and anything else, well, is paranormal. So settle in and enjoy another silly tale from the makers of the 5-minute mystery.
Egypt. Night. Silhouetted against the amber sky stands the cold and foreboding tomb of Prince Fede Ki Am. At the entrance of the tomb stand the figures that compose the Campbell expedition.
Open, Campbell. Good. Well, gentlemen, are you all ready?
Indeed we are, yes.
Good. Dr. Martin, you go first.
As you wish.
I'm right then, yeah?
Right.
Bill Crane.
Yes, sir.
And I'll take up the rear.
Boy, is it dark in here.
What'd you expect in a tomb? Sunlight?
I wonder what would happen if we got lost in here.
You know, Pena, you always manage to come up with the nicest thought.
Why are we stopping?
There are 4 passages branching out here.
Oh, that's just fine.
I suppose the only thing that we can do is to each take a passage and see where it leads to. How does that sound?
Sensible to me.
All right. To do.
All right, then. And if you find anything, just shout and we'll all come running.
Boy, it really is dark in here. Where where all these passages lead to? Oh, well. Good Lord. What was that?
What happened? Hey, what was that shot?
What's happened?
What was that
Dr.
shot?
Martin, what's happened to Campbell?
He's been shot, I guess. I was exploring that other tunnel when I heard a shot. I came running and found Campbell like this.
But who shot him?
He must have shot himself.
But his gun is still in his holster.
Yes, he must have tripped on this loose gravel, and the gun went off when he fell.
Well, come on. We can't let him lie here. Help me carry him out.
Well, gentlemen, I've examined him.
And?
I was right. The bullet I took out of his body was fired from Campbell's own gun.
I'm sorry to hear you say that.
Why? What do you mean?
Just that I'm holding you, Dr. Martin, for Campbell's murder.
What single clue led Crane to believe that Dr. Martin killed Campbell? In just a moment, we'll give you the solution. But first...
Okay, first off, this one starts out really well, but falls apart pretty quickly when one of the guy points out how dark it is several times. It continues to falter when we learn that Campbell's gun is still in the holster. Our only clue, by the way. Finally, the last straw is when the finger is pointed back at the doctor. The only one that could have done it. Why? Well, let's go find out.
And now, back to our story.
But Campbell wasn't murdered. He shot himself.
That's what you try to make us believe.
What do you mean?
Just this. You said Campbell shot himself when he fell. But his gun was in his holster.
Well,
anyone knows you can't fire a gun until you've drawn back the firing pin. But what you forgot is that no one has the firing pin released when they're carrying a gun in a holster.
But that just proves that Campbell was murdered. It doesn't prove that I killed him.
Oh, yes, it does, Mr. Martin. You just told us that the bullet you removed from Campbell's body was fired from his gun. But that's impossible. Therefore, you switched bullets. An innocent man wouldn't have done that. No, Dr. Martin. That one clue proves that you and you alone murdered Campbell.
Therefore, you switched bullets? Okay, now, if that's not the silliest and dumbest thing to say, I don't know what is. He took a bullet out of the gun and switched it with the one in the body. Really? I think that there are tests that just might refute that. But hey, that is our 5-minute mystery. Welcome to the podcast. On the program today, we end the month of spooky 2020 with a special Ghost Stories with Sylvia. But not to worry, I think you're going to enjoy what we have. If you're a fan of the Pitch Perfect movies, you'll know what a riff-off is. Basically, groups of a cappella singers spin a wheel to determine a topic, and then they sing it. Sylvia and I will do much the same thing, but using stories of the paranormal. The question you have to ask yourself is, what happens if we don't have a story to match the topic?
Yeah, well, what if it did?
Then you make one up on the spot. Also on the show, Sylvia unveils her annual Halloween contest. She will tell a ghost story about a famous hotel in Oregon and then ask a question about it. The first person to send in the correct answer will receive a copy of her new book, Days of the Dead, A Year of True Ghost Stories. So what do you say we get right to the fun and head to Sylvia's home in the great state of Illinois? We all love a good story, but what we truly crave is a ghost story. It's time now for Ghost Stories with Sylvia. Sylvia Shults is a librarian and author by day, but at night, she becomes a ghost hunter. Following a lifetime spent in the pursuit of the weird and the strange, her non-fiction works include Ghost of the Illinois River, Fractured Spirits, 44 Years in Darkness, Hunting Demons, and The Spirits of Christmas. We now cross over the veil and join Sylvia as she tells us more tales from the unknown. Are you there, Sylvia?
Hello, Ron. Come in. Who are your friends?
No time to talk right now. Matt, you and Jim get started setting up the wheel. Jenny, get on that sound equipment. And Pete, do your thing with the lighting. We only have an hour, so let's get going, people. Come on.
Be careful with that. It's over 100 years old.
Yes, ma'am. I'll treat it like it's my own.
Ron, what's going on here? I really don't need my living room remodeled.
No worries, Sylvia. This is all for the good. Jenny, is the sound good?
Ron, it is all good. Check 1. Check 2.
The Wheel of Paranormal.
Where'd all the confetti come from? Ron, how about if you tell me what's going on?
Well, I came up a great idea for our show today.
Oh, all right. Well, share.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this. Do you like telling stories?
Ah, Ron, you know I love telling stories.
All right. But have you ever been in an instant where you had to come up with a story on the spot?
Oh, not very often.
Okay. How would you like to try it today? You know, in hindsight, I probably should have asked you if it was okay to rebuild your living room.
Well, you know what? It's set up now. Let's just go ahead and do it.
Yeah, that's what I think. All right, so here's what we're going to do. You see this big wheel here?
Yeah.
Let me give it a spin for you. Pretty cool, huh? The lights and everything?
Yeah. Oh, the lights are nice.
Neat. Well, what I've done is I have put paranormal topic on each rung of those slats there on the wheel.
I see.
You see them there?
Okay.
And what we're going to do, Sylvia, is I'm going to give that wheel a spin, and we're going to play 4 rounds. And each round, you're going to have to tell a story from that particular, whatever it lands on.
All right. That sounds fair.
Okay. So let's get started. Of course, I don't have to do it. You have to do it yourself.
Well, how is it fair that I have to tell all the stories alone? I think this is your idea, Bub. I think you should have to tell some stories, too. I know you've got lots of stories stacked up in your files. You've told me about them.
Okay, so you're saying that we're going to do something like a cappella riff-off, except it'll be a paranormal story thing?
I think you've hit it on the head.
Well, okay, you tell me this then. Who's going to judge this thing?
Oh, well, we need somebody impartial, so that leaves Jim out. He's going to side with you every time. Although he might side with me every time. You never know.
Mm-hmm.
But we need somebody else. Who can we get to judge?
Well, how about those 3 ghosts standing in the corner over there?
Oh, them?
Yeah, I mean, are they yours?
You guys up for it? Okay, yeah, sure. They've agreed to act as judges.
Okay. So what we'll do is we'll play 4 rounds. Spin the wheel for you. You have to take the topic and run with it. And then I'll spin the wheel for me and I'll do it. And then the ghosts will tell us who won.
All right, sounds good.
But I got one more problem. Supposing that when we spin the wheel and it lands on a topic that, well, quite frankly, we don't have a ghost story for or a story for.
Well, if someone asks you for a story, I think you should oblige. So we could just make something up.
Ah, I like that. Off the top of our head, fake story?
It's possible. You know, if we're good enough storytellers, nobody will realize it's fake.
Well, I'm one of the best storytellers out there. I don't know about you.
I know about me.
All right. Well, I think we have a challenge then.
All right. Let's do this crazy thing.
All right. So would you like to spin the wheel first?
All right.
Go for it.
Step up to the wheel, spit on my hands a little bit, and give it a spin.
It came up number 7.
What topic is number 7?
Well, let me read the wheel here. It says, a woman in a red dress. Go for it, Sylvia.
All right, so they do say that the Biograph Theater in Chicago is haunted by the ghost of John Dillinger. The alley outside the theater is where he was shot and killed by FBI agents. And the reason that Dillinger was fingered by the FBI agents in the first place was that he was dating a woman who was kind of a double agent. She was working for the FBI. She was foreign and she was afraid of being deported. So the FBI talked her, blackmailed her into narking out John Dillinger, and she and Dillinger went to the theater, and she was dressed in a red dress.
I've heard
and
that.
The guy with her was John Dillinger, and that's how the FBI agents knew who Dillinger was. So when the lady in the red dress and John Dillinger came out of the theater, the FBI agents opened fire and shot him, and he ran into the alley next to the theater, and he died, and that's what he haunts now.
So Dillinger haunts that theater. I hadn't heard that.
Oh, yeah. It's right across the street from the Red Lion Inn, which is also extremely haunted.
Really?
That's fun. I've been there. I've not been to the Biograph, but I've been to the Red Lion, and that's fun.
Huh. No, see,
There's
no,
really good
I hadn't
food.
heard that one. So the ghost of Dillinger haunts a theater. Interesting. Is there any documentation on that one?
Yeah, people have people have felt weird things, and I think people have seen the ghost of Dillinger in the alley next to the theater. So a little bit of photographic evidence, a lot of weird feelings.
Pretty cool.
The usual.
I'd say that I think you nailed that one.
Okay.
All right, I have to do this now?
Yeah, give that old wheel a spin. See what you get.
All right, here we go.
Okay.
Oh, my word.
What? What'd you get?
Oh, I didn't want this one. I was hoping I wouldn't get this one.
What'd you get?
Well, you remember when we were talking beforehand, when we were setting all this up?
You got that one, didn't you?
A paranormal black dog. All right. I do not have a story for a paranormal black dog. However, I'm going to make one up on the spot.
All right.
And I'm going to tell you folks that 100% that this is not true. It's fake, and I made this up. And I don't even know what I'm going to say right now. So here we go.
Okay.
I think I'll do it in the voice of one of my listeners. You ready?
Ooh, yeah, sure.
Okay, here we go. Hello, Ron. I heard you asking for paranormal black dog stories. I just happened to have one. I was standing outside one afternoon, and I felt a chill in the air. I'm not sure where it came from, but it was a definite chill. I looked around, and there was no one in sight, and I saw off in the distance a dog run down the street. And I thought, now whose dog is that? There shouldn't be a dog running in this neighborhood. We have strict rules about that sort of thing. So I decided that I was going to trail after this dog and find out who it belonged to. So I started off after the dog, and he was running at a pretty good clip, but I could keep up with him pretty well. And we got to the playground. There's a playground just a few blocks from my house. And the dog ran into the playground, so I ran in after him. And lo and behold, if my eyes don't deceive me, the dog ran underneath the monkey bars and disappeared. Just gone. And to this day, I don't know where he went. He couldn't have gone through the other side. The only explanation I can offer is either he ran into some warp gate or he was a ghost dog. I don't know. Okay, there's my black dog story.
All right. I think you nailed it.
Okay. Well, who won this round? They're your ghosts, so I suggest that you ask them the question.
Okay. 3 ghosts in the corner. Who do you think won this round of storytelling? Was it Ron with his black dog disappearing into thin air story? Or was it my John Dillinger and the mysterious lady in the red dress?
Ghost number 1. Ghost number 2.
Run.
What's a tie?
Ghost number 3.
Run.
Haha, Sylvia, I won. I got it. I thought for sure this was going to be rigged since they are your ghosts.
Well, first round to you.
All right. You ready for round 2?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Give it a spin, Sylvia.
All right. Here we go.
Ooh, it came up number 1.
Okay.
Well, Sylvia, this actually came from my brother. He donated this particular story idea, and it happens to be a dream from a past life. And he sent along a little explanation.
Yeah, let's explain that.
Yeah, he said a persistent dream or reaction that suggests an experience from a prior life. And then he sent an example. For him, it's an irrational panic reaction to anything having to do with drowning or fear of water. For example, he can't watch the end of Casino Royale.
Huh.
So you're up, Sylvia. Clock's ticking.
Oh, I know. I can't think of anything just right off the top of my head, so...
Fake story time.
Well, you know what? Okay, here is something from my own experience.
Oh, really? So this is real.
It might be a past life sort of thing, but it might not be. I haven't figured it out yet. I have recurring dreams about being with a guy who is wonderful and sweet and doesn't look a thing like my husband. And I know in the dream that it's not my husband, but it's someone I'm very close to. And it's not necessarily in a romantic way, but I just have... in these dreams, we're walking through a countryside. It's always in the countryside. And there's just this feeling of closeness and love and peace and harmony. And I've been having these dreams for years. It's not related to anything. It's not, when I have burritos that night, I don't automatically have there's no way to predict that I'll have this dream. But when I started going to the Peoria State Hospital and I met Chris, the spirit that lives down in the basement of the Pollock Hospital, from what he's described of himself, he looks kind of like this guy in my dreams.
Wow.
This is not something I'm making up. The psychic mediums that I've had down there have been able to tell me that I remind him of his sister, which is why he's so attracted to me.
Wow.
So I wonder, I've started to wonder ever since I made that connection with Chris, and I've had the dream a couple times since then. I wonder if I knew Chris in a past life, and that's what I'm picking up on. That's what my subconscious is picking up on. And it's not like I go to the Pollock Hospital, I interact with Chris, and then I have that dream that night. It's not like that either. But I just wonder if that's Chris in my dreams. Because a dear friend of mine pointed out, dreams are timeless. So
I think that's awesome.
Me too.
I think that is cool. And it makes sense.
Yeah, because the dreams are so pleasant and I wake up so refreshed from them. And it's really a wonderful experience. And I've only had them like once a year, once every 18 months or so. So they're really rare, but they're so wonderful when they happen. And I wonder if it's Chris.
That's pretty cool. And I think it fits the criteria 100%.
Well, good. All right, now your turn to spin.
I know, it's my turn. Here we go. Five.
Okay, what's 5?
A UFO encounter during Mardi Gras.
You got that one.
But I have news for you. I actually have a UFO story from Mardi Gras. All right.
Well, that's how it got up on the wheel. You rigged it.
Well, actually, we each, just so the listeners know, we each got to pick 3, and then my brother gave us 2.
Yeah.
So,
It's all fair. It's all above board. I think it's funny that you got that story.
And I am going to read it. It comes from Robin Marsh from Lake Charles, Louisiana.
Okay.
She says, "Hey, Ron, I don't like to talk about this, but I want to tell you, I live in Lake Charles, Louisiana. Mardi Gras in Lake Charles has a long history dating back to 1882 when Momnus, king of Mardi Gras, landed his royal yacht at the foot of Pujo Street downtown. Mardi Gras happens each year just before Easter and one day before Ash Wednesday. I tell you all of this to set up the time. I also tell you this because I was out celebrating with my then girlfriend, Emu. Yes, I think her parents hated her as well. We went downtown hopping from one party to another, and as the night wore on, drinks were taking effect. We had just left a party at Longerhead's bar and decided to walk down to the river to clear our heads. There is a boat dock right at the place, and the view in spring at night is nothing short of amazing. We were alone at night and it was calm. The sounds of frogs, nightbirds, and insects were our music. Emu pointed out that the light was moving pretty fast on top of the skimming water. It was heading straight for us, and at first I was sure I was just seeing things. It stopped dead in its track, and it acted like it saw us, too. I thought it had to be a firefly. It was spring, after all, and I remember as a kid hunting them. However, this firefly began to change colors, first red, then blue, then yellow, then back to red. Emu said it must be a drone. However, it did a very undrone-like thing and made the infinity circle right there on the river.
Huh.
It kept this up for several seconds and then flew back using the same course that it had used to approach us. It blinked out after it had gone about 60 feet, and it was gone. Ha!
Well.
Is that
okay.
a UFO encounter during Mardi Gras? I think so.
It absolutely is, yes.
And I'm surprised I got that. I was hoping you'd get that one.
I'm glad I didn't. You had something all ready for it.
Well, I think you did too with the woman in the red dress.
I could have gone with, that was the one that popped into my head the first thing, the first thought.
Well, I will admit that I knew I had a UFO encounter during Mardi Gras.
During Mardi Gras. I love it.
All right, Sylvia. I guess they're your ghosts.
Oh, ghosts in my living room, hanging out there in the corner. Who won this round of storytelling? Was it Ron with his fortuitous UFO story during Mardi Gras?
Yes.
Or was it a possible dream from a past life that I spoke about talking with Chris down in the Pollock Hospital?
All right. Ghost number 1? Ghost number 2?
Sylvia.
Ghost number 3?
Sylvia.
I got all 3 nods of approval.
But
Wonderful.
my Mardi Gras story was so good.
Thank you.
All right.
I hope your listener doesn't feel slighted. That was a pretty cool story.
Yeah, I don't even remember when I read that one. It was many, many years ago that one was on the podcast.
Okay. Well, I hope he's still listening.
Well, I'll make sure I give him credit in the show notes.
Yeah.
All right. You ready for another spin?
All right. Let's do it.
All right. Round 3, by the way. It's tied.
Okay.
Just so you know, you're not walking away with this thing.
I know.
Okay.
I know I'm not locked in or anything.
All right, here we go.
Okay, let's give this a spin.
All right, it came up on number 3. Number 3 reads, Out of Body Experience.
Oh, this is mine, right?
That's yours.
Out-of-body experience. Well, that's not really my area of expertise.
Mm-hmm.
I usually do the ghosts instead, but I've done so much reading about out-of-body experiences that I guess I can tell a tale about it. I was at a conference a couple years ago, and somebody came up to me after I was done speaking and said that she had had an out-of-body experience. And she told me that she had fallen asleep while she was reading on her porch swing. And it seemed to her like she got up and could see herself sleeping peacefully on the porch swing. And it looked very relaxing. And she was almost tempted to crawl back into her body and enjoy the nap. But she said, well, how often does this happen? So she walked down the street to an ice cream shop. And she was like, man, I just have a taste for some ice cream. I'll have a nap and have some ice cream too. This is her thought process.
Mm-hmm.
And when she got to the ice cream place, she realized that since it was her astral body there, A, she didn't have a wallet to pay for the ice cream. And B, she couldn't actually eat the ice cream. So she just went back to, as soon as she thought that, she was back next to her body and just lay down on the porch swing and woke up from her nap.
So I would say that qualifies
Lame,
100%. There you go, folks. Sylvia's paranormal story about her out-of-body experience. Totally fake, by the way.
Yes, completely fake.
Okay. Well, I don't know how you're going to do with that one.
Yeah, I don't know. My non-existent title might be in jeopardy. Hey, isn't it your turn to tell a story?
Yeah, it is. All right, let me spin this here wheel.
Okay.
Six. Ooh, that's one of yours. A paranormal tale set on a train.
Oh, man, I was hoping to get that one.
Oh, well, you still might.
Okay.
So far, we've had a different number every time. That's pretty amazing.
You have got to have a paranormal story set on a train somewhere in your brain.
I do have a story, Sylvia. And, you know, this was one of the ones that from very early on in the podcast, it was sent in. And so all I really know about this gentleman is that his name was Lucas Tens, and he's from the town of Franca, São Paulo, and that's in Brazil.
Yes.
Did I say that right? Franco, São Paulo?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm smiling right now because as you started your story, the train whistle blew outside my window.
So here's his story.
Okay.
My father worked for the RFFSA in Brazil all of his life until retirement in 1997. That meant that we traveled by train for free, and we did a lot. I loved the train, and I still do. Today, however, when I board, I look around first. It was the summer of 1985, and my family was going on vacation to my aunt's hacienda. We boarded the train and split up, as was the custom. We each had a favorite part, and for me, it was in the dining car. I would head back, pick a seat, and watch people imagining who they were and where they were going. It was a busy day, and from time to time, people would ask to sit with me. I always said yes, and would make up fantastic stories about myself and why I was on the train. It was all in good fun. A dark man, that's the best way I can describe him, came to sit with me. He was tall, but not too tall, chubby, but not too chubby, and kept his face covered with a large fedora. I found him utterly fascinating. He had a deep voice, and it rumbled, rivaling the sound of a train. The first thing he said to me was, "So, do you like stories?" I squeaked out, "Yes, sir." He proceeded to tell me every story that I had lied about that day and told them back to me in detail. I asked him how he knew about this, and he shrugged and said that he lives here. On the train, I countered. He answered with a yes. I was uncomfortable, and I launched into a long discussion with the man, trying to justify my actions. It was then a woman walked up and asked if she could sit down. I turned to her in disgust and was about to say that there was no room. Then I realized I was sitting alone. The dark man was gone. I tried to find him on the train, but there was no sign of him. I talked to everyone, including my family, and not a single person had seen him. I even asked the conductor who he was, and he knew of no one that matched that description. Finally, we reached our stop. As I walked with my family up the boarding platform, or down the boarding platform, I'm guessing, I happened to glance back at the train. There, peering at me, was the dark man. People were passing through him like he wasn't there. Sylvia, I got this round.
You totally do. Your story blew mine out of the water. That was awesome.
I'm sorry, Lucas Tens, if I mispronounced your name and your city, but I've always loved that story, and it comes to my mind anytime I think about a ghost story on a train. That's why I knew I had that one.
Lucas, that story rocked. Oh my gosh.
I love that story. Oh, and it's been so long since I've told that on the show, too. I think it's got to be at least 6 years since that one's been on the show.
Wow.
So, kudos to me.
Yeah.
Sylvia asked
this
the
round
ghost.
is definitely to you. Oh, yeah. We can ask the ghosts, but I concede happily.
Ghost, do you agree? Well, they're all nodding their heads.
Okay, all
They
right.
love
That's
the
good enough
story
for me.
too. All right, Sylvia, it's 2-1. One round to go.
Okay.
Give the wheel a spin, Sylvia.
All right.
You're not going to believe it.
What?
6.
6, which is
Paranormal story set on a train.
awesome. All right, cool. Okay, I got one.
I just want to take a minute. Ladies and gentlemen, this truly is random. So these numbers are just random. So just so you know, that's legit. So Sylvia, give me a paranormal story set on a train.
Okay, here it is. It may come as a surprise to those who love the 4 ghosts of Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol to discover that Dickens was no great fan of the supernatural. In fact, he was as unimpressed by ghost stories as was Ebenezer Scrooge. Therefore, it may be even more of a surprise that Dickens wrote many ghost stories besides A Christmas Carol. In 1861, Dickens wrote 4 ghost stories that were published in the magazine all the year round. In one of the stories, a portrait painter is riding on a train and strikes up a conversation with a young woman. The date is September 13th. During their conversation, the woman asks the artist if it is possible to paint someone's portrait from memory. The artist's answer is a hedging, maybe, I guess so. She asks him to study her face carefully, just in case he ever has to paint her portrait. Humoring her, the artist gazes at her for a good while. 2 years later, a gentleman visits the artist's studio with a strange request. Could the artist paint a portrait of the man's deceased daughter based only on the man's description? The artist does his best, but can't quite manage it. Finally, he casts his memory back 2 years and draws on the features of the young woman on the train for inspiration. The client takes one look at the portrait and is thrilled with the results. It's the very image of his beloved lost daughter. Out of curiosity, and because it's a short story, the artist asks when the girl had died. The father answers, 2 years ago, on the 13th of September. Well, that's good for running a chill down the spine. But someone was not at all pleased with Dickens's tale. The magazine had barely hit the stands when Dickens got an enraged letter from an actual portrait painter who accused Dickens of stealing his story. A story he'd written based on an experience that had actually happened to him. Every detail in the story, the meeting on the train, the grieving father's request for a portrait, was identical to the unpublished story. Dickens had to have stolen the story somehow, the artist accused. What baffled the artist most, he said, was how Dickens had come up with the date mentioned in the story. How else was it possible that the date, the 13th of September, could have been got at? For I never told the date until I wrote it. Dickens was just as flummoxed as his accuser. He later said that when he originally wrote the story, he hadn't even mentioned a date. But when he read the story for revision, he realized that the story would be much more effective and spookier with a date. So he jotted a random date, September 13th, in the margin.
And this is from where does this story come from?
That is actually one of the ghost stories in my upcoming book, Days
the new
of the
book?
Dead. Yeah.
So just real briefly, that book is going to have a ghost story for every day of the week. Is that right?
Yeah, every day of the year. So that's the one for September 13th.
Wow. Okay, so not only is that cool, but I love that story. And it features one of my favorite Christmas stories. I don't know why. I shouldn't, because it's a creepy story when you really come down to it. But, and maybe it's because I love Bill Murray. Scrooged is one of my favorite movies, so I think that's a great story. All right. I think we got one more roll left in us.
Yep.
Here we go.
It is your turn.
All right, I'm going to spin it.
All right.
Oh, boy.
What? Did you get the black dog again?
Yes. Can we do a second roll?
Let's spin again.
Let's be fair. Let's ask the ghosts.
Okay. Should he spin again?
Thumbs up or thumb down, ghost?
It's hard to tell with ectoplasm, but I think they're all giving thumbs up. I think they should,
so I can roll again?
I think they think you should spin
because
again.
I do not have a paranormal story about a black dog. All right, here we go. I'm going to spin it again.
Okay.
Two.
Okay.
Synchronous knowledge across a significant distance. This one came from my brother as well.
Okay.
And he describes it with a quantum explanation. He says, entanglement at a molecular level between entities with a common reference point. What Einstein dismissed as spooky action at a distance. I do have a story for that.
Okay.
And it comes from our very own Tom Williams.
Mm-hmm.
And he sent this story in fairly early on when he was doing his weekly Growing Up series that we did for quite a while on the podcast. And I'm going to read it just as he sent it in many years ago. Hello, Ron and listeners. Thinking back over my lifetime, it has occurred to me how life offers us different paths. Some for the good, and some for the not so good. I remember a choice I once had to make on a spur of the moment. It was a Saturday before noon and was a beautiful day as my wife and I were preparing for a trip over to my aunt's house to take her shopping and a few errands. I received a phone call. It was my friend and helicopter flight instructor at OSU. He was also a flight safety officer for the Columbus Police. Tom, I have to fly a World War II converted aircraft over to Washington, D.C. for a buyer, and I need a co-pilot. Want to fly the right seat? This was a chance of a lifetime. My wife reminded me that I had promised my aunt that I would definitely be there that weekend. Sadly, I had to refuse the offer. Besides, this was very short notice. It took us a few hours to get ready and then make the 1-hour trip from Columbus to Newark. As we pulled into the parking lot at my aunt's house, news came over the radio about a World War II aircraft flying from Columbus, Ohio to Washington, D.C. had crashed on final approach. All crew members were killed. Needless to say, it took us some time to get out of that car. This has taught me a lesson for life. Always keep your promises, no matter how inconvenient they might be. In memory of my good friend Ken. Tom Williams, Berlin.
Oh, my. Wow.
Pretty asynchronous and knowledge across a significant distance, would you not say?
Yeah, that's a creepy story.
Well, and it happened to our very own Tom Williams.
Yeah.
And I thank you, Tom, for sharing that with us. I don't even know how many years ago that one came from. And yes, I know I had a kind of advantage because I have all my stories categorized and organized, ready for a book.
Yeah, I just have mine written down in notebooks.
I have them categorized by ghost or UFO, you name it. I have subcategories under my categories. So I'm going to say I almost cheated on that one. But anyway, I think it's up to the ghosts to decide, don't you?
Yeah, the ghosts are going to have a tough time with this one, I'll tell you.
Ask your ghosts.
Okay, ghosts in my living room. This is a tough one. Who won this round? There's a story about the great author Charles Dickens, and then there was that incredibly moving story of Ron's from Tom Williams about his friend, and just a happenstance that he didn't go with, that he kept his promise instead. Who won this round?
Ghost number 1? Haha, Sylvia.
Okay. I see how this is going.
Ghost number 2?
Aha.
Oh, no, it's a fluke. He's picked you every time. Every single time that ghost has been for you.
Okay, well, here's the third one.
Ghost number 3, what do you say? Ghost number 3?
Ghost number 3.
Sylvia.
Oh!
You won, Sylvia!
I thought that was a tie.
Well, you won that round, so yes, that
Okay.
means we are tied.
That we are tied. Okay.
I think that's poetic justice.
I think so. I think we are equally matched as storytellers.
I think that was a whole lot of fun, and I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did.
I enjoyed it too. That was super fun. Anytime we can get together and tell stories is an okay time in my book.
All right, Sylvia, what do you say we make this an annual ghost story riff-off?
Okay, well, on September 30th, I'll just start chugging Tums and getting myself all psyched up. No, this was fun. This is a lot of fun, and yeah, let's do it again next year.
Same time next year.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you for taking part in that, Sylvia and Ghosts. And I also want to say a big thank you to my brother for providing 2 of the categories.
Yes, thanks, Jim.
And I also want to thank Matt and Jenny for setting up all the equipment.
Couldn't have done it without you.
Yeah, and I hope you didn't damage the furniture. That would be unfortunate.
Right, yeah. And clean up this confetti, honestly.
All right, Sylvia, we have one more Halloween tradition that we have got to do.
Yes, we do. It is our annual Halloween contest.
Tell them what they're going to win, Sylvia.
They are going to win a copy of my brand new book that isn't even quite finished yet. It is called Days of the Dead, A Year of True Ghost Stories.
When do we think this is going to publish?
Man, I'm working towards getting it out by the end of this year. So, it starts on January 1st, and it would be really awesome if people could start reading on January 1st. So, fingers crossed. I'll be working away on it this weekend, and yeah, we'll get it out.
All right, Sylvia, what do we have to do to win the contest? And I say we, because I want the book too.
Okay, so here's the thing. Many ghost stories are associated with the Heathman Hotel in Portland, Oregon. So you're the ringer here,
All
Ron.
right, I will eliminate myself. I'm still going to get a copy when it comes out. You can't stop me.
Well, yeah. Okay, so Heathman Hotel in Portland, Oregon. Most of the paranormal activity seems to be centered around room 703. Guests check into the room, unpack, and go about their business. When they return, they sometimes find a half-filled glass of water on the desktop, or a towel has been taken off the towel rack and put on the counter as if someone had used it. So, here's the thing. In September of 1999, a psychic concluded that the spirit energy was concentrated from room 303, and we've already mentioned room 703, to room 1003. Now, my challenge to you guys, and here's the question you have to answer to win a copy of Days of the Dead, is why those rooms? We've got 303, 703, and 1003. Why are those rooms haunted?
I can hear the Google engines running. All right, Sylvia, how are we going to do this? Are we? Do they send an email directly to you, or do you want them to send them to Ron's Amazing Stories at gmail.com?
I think we should do it the same as last year and send in your answers to Ron's Amazing Stories, and Ron will pass them along to me.
All right, so to put that into a nutshell, all you have to do is find the answers to Sylvia's question and send it to Ron's Amazing Stories at gmail.com, and you too just might win a copy of the brand new Sylvia Shults novel. How about that? What is going to be the close-off date on this, Sylvia? How long do they have?
Till November 15th.
Okay, so you have until November 15th to get your answers in, and you too can walk away with the name of the book, Sylvia?
Days of the Dead, A Year of True Ghost Stories.
That sounds awesome. And I promise that when I get my copy, I will read it every day. All right, Sylvia, well, we are going to have to move on now. So tell us what's going on with the blog and Lights Out, and something special this time. You want to talk a little bit about vocal media. So tell me all about what's going on in the world of Sylvia.
Okay. Well, on Lights Out, we have a 2-part episode coming up about Queen of Heaven Cemetery in Hillside outside Chicago. Now, we did talk last month about Julia Petta, who was buried in Mount Carmel Cemetery. Queen of Heaven Cemetery is across the street from Mount Carmel, and that is where the victims of the 1958 fire at Our Lady of the Angels School are buried.
Wasn't there a ghost hunting episode on that?
Yes, that is a ghost hunting episode. I visited that area of the cemetery and talked to the spirits there, and we'll see if anybody responded. And then the Queen of Heaven Cemetery also has a magnificent mausoleum, and we'll be taking a visit to that as well. So that's why it's a 2-parter.
So complete with sound and pictures?
Yes,
All
yes,
right.
I'm with sound and pictures. If you watch it on YouTube. If you're just listening to it as a podcast, it's just the sound.
Okay. All right, so tell us about Vocal Media. What's going on here? This is something new to me.
It is new. I just discovered a site called vocal.media. No www, no .com or anything like that. It's just vocal.media. And this is a place to share your stories. And I put up a couple of ghost stories. Here's the neat thing about the Vocal Media site. When people read your story, you get paid.
Really?
It's a neat way to get your work out there and get it in front of eyeballs. And that's how people benefit from the site. The more times people read your stories, the more you can earn. And so I put some stories up. I put one horror fiction story, so people might dig that. People might be interested in what I used to do before I wrote ghost stories.
Mm-hmm.
And there are several actual ghost stories up there, too. So visit vocal.media and click on horror, or just type in Sylvia Shults, Shults, and you will, if you do that, if you type in my name, it'll come up with just my stuff. And you can poke around the site and read other people's stuff too. That's great. So yeah, you can read my stories, and you're helping me out just by reading them, but you can also leave a tip if you're so inclined.
Cool. I'm looking at the site right now, and some of the topics are beat, blush, criminal, horror, humans, journal, life hack, marriage, pet life, poets, proof, psyche, chain, wheel, just all kinds of different topics.
It's really neat. I'm looking forward to exploring the site myself. I've already found a couple interesting articles and life hacks, and yeah, you can write stories about, and articles too, about anything you really want, and get it in front of readers, and we're just all helping each other out, which is pretty cool.
I love their tagline: share your stories and earn.
There you go.
Okay, so that is vocal.media. And it is a protected site. It is a locked site, so don't have to feel like you're going somewhere where you could get into trouble.
Right.
All right, well, thanks for that, Sylvia. But you know what the clock on the wall says?
It probably says it's time to go.
It does. And I'm going to say thank you for playing the game today, Sylvia. I had a blast.
It was fun.
All right. And maybe next year we'll even have it a little more fine-tuned.
We can do that.
All right.
We'll figure out a way. We're smart like that.
Well, thanks for being with us today, Sylvia. And I will have all the information you need to know about Sylvia and how to contact her in the show notes. Thank you, Sylvia.
Absolutely, Ron. Happy Halloween.
All right. Hey, guys, get started on the breakdown. I'm going to head home.
Leave them here to do all the work. Okay, I see. You guys, I'll make you hot chocolate afterwards. How's that?
Sounds good, Sylvia. Thanks.
You bet.
Ghost Stories with Sylvia was brought to you by Gladys Goodies. I always have a great time talking with Sylvia, and I learn all kinds of new stuff. If you want to visit her on her home turf, head to sylviashults.wordpress.com. There you will find her blog and access to the podcast Lights Out. I will have links available in the show notes. Thank you, Sylvia. Gladys Goodies treats are a 100% natural, nutrient-rich treat that pets love to eat. You can get your treats and some really cool swag for your dog and cat at GladysGoodies.com. And don't forget to use our very own promo code RONS. That's RONS. And you'll get a 20% discount on all of your purchases. That website again is GladysGoodies.com. I hope you enjoyed this edition of Ghost Stories with Sylvia.
Not so important times in history.
In this segment, we take a look at historical events that may otherwise go unnoticed. We look at history with a fish-eyed lens, giving a perspective that should provide no insight to anyone or any time. But it is historical, or hysterical, as the case may be. Join us now for this event in history. It all started in 2016 at an apartment complex in Greenville, South Carolina, where a boy told his mom about a frightening experience. 2 clowns tried to lure him into the woods outside their building. The story was unconfirmed, but copycats soon emerged. A woman in Alabama created a Facebook page for Flomo the Clown and then threatened to kill people at a local school. Police arrested a man in Kentucky who dressed like a clown and began hiding in a ditch. In just a few months, people had reported more than 100 clown sightings and threats in the United States alone, and the phenomenon began to spread to other countries, including England, Canada, and Australia. The people's reaction was frightening as well. People began to threaten to shoot clowns, and a mob even formed at Penn State University in response to a clown sighting. All the hysteria prompted author Stephen King to issue a statement calling for people to cool it. You might remember that he wrote a novel about a murderous clown character named Pennywise, which probably contributed to the craze. All this begs the question, why clowns? Certainly, popular culture has conditioned us to fear clowns, with fictional portrayals like those in It, to actual events like the serial murders committed by John Wayne Gacy, known in the press as the Killer Clown. But there are many who believe something more fundamental. For clowns are unpredictable. You never know if they're going to squirt you with water or pull something from their sleeve. The exaggerated face paint also makes them uncanny, inhuman, but in a strange and mysterious way. We just aren't wired to deal with this uncertainty, and the Great Clown Scare of 2016 is proof. This not-so-important time in history was brought to you by Audible, where you can have the audiobook, It, by Stephen King for free. Just head to audibletrial.com/RonsAmazingStories and you can get a free audiobook and a 30-day free trial to Audible. Thus ends episode number 463 and the month of Spooky 2020. I hope you enjoyed all the shows, and I do want to thank everyone that took part. It was a pretty good season. If you want to follow the podcast or the blog, head to ronsamazingstories.com. There you will find any of the links I mentioned and how to contact us. Do you want to help the show? The best thing you can do is to tell your friends all about it, and please leave reviews or feedback wherever you listen. Clicking that follow or like button makes us grow. Thank you for listening, and I hope you come again to find out what are Ron's Amazing Stories.